Bryan. How are you?
Good. Everything's working again. Good.
Yeah, a relatively smooth transition.
Yeah.
Your presentation was just outstanding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I always get worried. I get
Well,
stage
listen,
fright like everyone.
I'm a former academic. I get it.
Yeah. It never stops. But I appreciate that. I'm
Yeah.
glad it went. I'm amazed the technology is working as smoothly as it is. This is
Don't jinx it.
oh sorry. Sorry.
I'm just teasing.
So far, so good.
Yeah. Listen, while I have you just a moment, maybe after the dust settles, I'd like to get back to you and see if you'd be interested in writing an article for our newsletter Legacy on your presentation. It was tremendous.
Yeah, thank you. Sure, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, we're delighted to have it.
That would be fine.
Yeah. So we have people coming in, and we'll wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Those are people I recognize.
Yeah, parents.
Nice to see you again. Someday it'll be in person. I can't wait.
I know.
I can't wait. Only when it's right.
I'm working on some settings here. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Trying to get my audio set up right. Okay. Hopefully that works. Good to see y'all.
That was great, Bryan. You gave us so much information that I had never heard before. I really enjoyed it.
This has just been a remarkable conference. I've just enjoyed it so much, and I'm so impressed with the professionalism and the organization and the content and the presentations, everything. Thank you.
Of course, Liz, I paid you to do that, right?
Hardly.
Liz lives here in Santa Fe and a friend, and we've worked together on programs and projects together.
And originally from Fort Worth, Texas.
So that's where that drawl comes from. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes for some more people to join us. We have about 20 far, which is a good number. We had about 25 in yesterday's conversation, and it was lively. In fact, it went a little bit longer than we expected, but
hey. Liz, this is Sandra Freed. I used to live
Sandra, hi.
What was your maiden name, or what is
Levine, Sandra. And I do remember you from Fort Worth, of course.
I'm trying to remember you. I'm so sorry.
Do you remember Livia and Sam Levine?
Yeah, okay, you're their daughter.
That's right. I live in Santa Fe now.
I was wondering if that's who you were.
Yes.
Sure, I remember
yes.
your mother and father.
Yeah, I'm married to Andrew Resnick, but I kept my name.
Okay.
And we live in Santa Fe now.
Well, great.
Good to see you.
It's nice to see you too. I was really thinking that that's who you were.
Yes.
You were a child.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
So,
then we moved to California, and then we moved to New Mexico.
Right. My memory is coming back. I'm suffering from chemo brain. So it's so difficult, but it's great to see you.
I hope you're doing okay, Sandra.
I'm okay. I just have some issues with melanoma. But no pain. And I'm living in Austin now.
Oh,
So we moved here to be with our children about 19 years ago. And love Fort Worth, though. It was a great city. And Austin is too.
Austin just is different. Also. Yeah, it is different.
Yeah, very different. And especially I'm older, so that makes a bigger difference.
So, aren't we all?
Well, yes, considering.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for the breakout conversation. I would like to ask that for the most part, you try to more or less remain muted unless you'd like to, ask a question, not through the chat box or Q&A. You can always, put the little hand signal up if you'd like to do it that way. There were a couple of reasons for trying this. One of which is because we couldn't meet in person. We wanted to find a way to try to personalize this conference so that we could have an opportunity in a more informal, casual way to talk a little bit more about some of the presentations, largely from today, but we may have one or two speakers who joined us yesterday. I'd like to start off by, turning back to Bryan Stone for just a moment. If people would like to ask him some more questions or more comments, about Bryan's wonderful presentation. So why don't we start off that way? Bryan, I think you're there.
I'm here.
Okay.
Happy to talk.
All right. So if you have a question or comment, unmute, and please feel free to ask Bryan any additional questions or comments that you have. Take it from there.
Looks like Cindy's got a hand up. Go ahead, Cindy.
Hi, this is Cindy Friedman. I'm zooming in from Santa Fe, New Mexico, but I grew up in Houston. I so appreciated your presentation and your work. And so I have a question as a descendant of my grandfather came through Galveston Island. Now I'm even more curious than before. So as you continue your work, are you interested in being in touch with generations that have followed? Or, I mean, is there any way I can follow you and be of help in any way?
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be in touch. I mean, the short answer is yes, of course. The slightly longer answer is, oh my God, that's going to be a lot of people. And so I've been a little reluctant to open that door. It's easier working with documents, than with living people. But I would, of course, be happy to talk with you, especially if you know anything about your family. I mean, I'm sort of trying to keep kind of an individual record for each of the immigrants, at least with information about when they arrived and whatever I might know about them. And you probably have that information a lot more at hand than I would be able to get it. So if you'd like to send me an email, maybe we could start there. In fact, I can put, and this is for any of you, that's my email. And you can just drop me a note anytime. I mean, anybody who is a descendant, I'd be happy to hear from you, just learn what you know. But, oh wait, did that go? Hold on. That went only to Cindy. Sorry about that. Let me try that again. There we go. That should be now there for everyone. Yeah, happy to hear from you. Now that I've said it, I'm already a little nervous. It's like, oh no. There must be 100,000 at least Galveston. I mean, who knows how many, and I can't talk to everybody, but.
Actually, my question really was if it would be helpful to you, if you come upon a time where you'd like to have some interviews, I'd like to be available. I really don't want to burden you.
I'm happy to hear from you, but yes, I will. And I know sort of at some point in the future that's going to happen. I've been sort of trying to set up my database and gather what I can, but I couldn't do it without families if I'm really going to do it. So yes, certainly I would love to talk.
Can I add something to what we were discussing during Bryan's presentation? We kept talking about the Galveston Scroll, and I found out more information. When Barbara Rosenberg was president of TJHS in 1980 into early 1990s, one of the projects was a letter sent out to TJHS members that if you're a Galveston immigrant or a descendant, we're going to put together a scroll and it'll have your name on it. Please contact us. And everybody had a designated amount of money. That scroll is what is in our archives in Galveston. So I'm going to email Linda when I get back from traveling. So possibly she can put an article in the legacy that if you are in New Mexico or wherever you are and you're an immigrant's descendant, your name can be added to the scroll, because what they've done is we're going to try and laminate that scroll and you get a picture of your portion on that scroll, if that makes sense.
Is the actual list of names available anywhere, Sally, except on the scroll?
Ask Katie Lou, I don't know, or Barbara. She was on the phone with Ron trying to get
It would be
on.
great if just the list of names could be put online or something.
Okay, but that's where you can find names, if you can contact Evan.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Thank you.
You know, Bryan, going back to your presentation for just a moment, I know it's an ongoing research project and may take you many more years, as you suggested.
Yeah.
What are your one or two next immediate goals or foci of your ongoing research?
Good. There's sort of two things I'm doing kind of simultaneously. One is I'm going to continue going ship by ship. So far, I've done one ship. There are 101 of them. So, you know, I really am at the beginning. But I'd like to go ship by ship and do what I can to collect at least the sort of low-hanging information on each immigrant. It's easy to find their ship, the manifest listing for them. That's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to find census data, you know, and just collect what I can. So that's going to be ongoing just as I'm able to do it. The other thing is I need to start learning more about the communities. And so I have collected, I think I mentioned, just a bunch of old articles or whatever scholarship I can find on some of the communities that more of the immigrants went to. I don't know anything about Kansas City. You know, my work has been in Texas. And if I want to pursue this, I really need to know a lot more about the places that most of the immigrants went. So Kansas City, Minneapolis, Des Moines are communities I need to read about. Denver, you know, and so I'll start collecting information and trying to sort of learn. And I don't really know yet where that goes, but I need to get a better sense. One of the questions that I really want to figure out is do Jewish people in other states, are they aware of this the way that I know we are in Texas? We've sort of made it this focal point of our own history. I don't know if Kansas City Jews make a big deal out of this or Des Moines Jews. And I'd like to try to find out more about what this event means to them in their own local histories. And so it's something I need to work on.
Going back to Iowa for just a moment, I spent 4 years there working in a small private liberal arts college outside of Des Moines, Pella, Iowa. And I attended services at B'nai Jeshurun in Des Moines, which is a Reform congregation. And I may be wrong about this, Bryan, but I think B'nai Jeshurun is the older of the two communities in Des Moines. And I think they got underway somewhere in the 1880s, 1890s. And, you know, that particular synagogue, and I forget the name of the other conservative one, may have some valuable resources.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Insofar as Iowa is concerned, but there is a fairly large Jewish community in Des Moines.
I'm not surprised. Something I'd like to find. I haven't been able to start collecting them yet. But you know, when synagogues do like their silver anniversary annual books or their golden books, 50th anniversaries, they often include their histories, the congregation's history. And I've collected a number of them from Texas as part of my earlier research. And they almost always mention the Galveston movement as this like moment in their history when all the Jews got here, which is not really actually true, but it's sort of the way they remember this part of their history. And I would like to try to gather some of those also from places like Des Moines and see if that's something that they also, does it figure prominently in their history as well? In their sort of understanding of their own history.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who's that?
Oh, check out Omaha as well. It has a sizable Jewish community, and
Good.
I'm pretty sure that a number of the original Jewish leaders came there as a part of the Galveston movement.
Good. Okay. That's what I'm looking for. And I haven't actually seen yet. What did these immigrants, what did these folks do when they got there in terms of contributing to a Jewish community? And I suspect a lot of them became, synagogue leaders and big people in the community. But I haven't seen any actual evidence of that yet. I don't have those names or those stories.
I could be wrong about this, but I think that leading furniture stores, or a group of furniture stores there, were started by Jews who probably came through the Galveston movement.
Interesting. Okay. Very good.
Worth checking out anyway.
Good. Thank you very much.
Bryan, let me ask you a question, if I may.
Who are you?
Yeah. Ed Goldberg founded the Herald in 1908, and this movement started in 07. So it was the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that my grandfather and Henry Cohen were very close friends and associates. Did the Herald carry much on the Galveston movement in the early years?
Tons, all the time. I don't know how much of it was actually Goldberg writing it. He had a staff of people who wrote, but yes, they covered it constantly, and very positively. It was a big booster. The Herald was a big booster for the movement. I think probably Goldberg thought it was good for Houston. I don't know how much it turned out to be, but he thought it was good for the development of the state and development of Houston in particular. And so he was a huge supporter. And he was a huge supporter of Henry Cohen, so Cohen said, do this, he did it. But yeah, you can't, if you scan through those years of the Herald, you can't miss it. It's almost every issue is a reference to it.
Naomi Sandweiss has her hand.
Hi, Naomi. Thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful.
And we'll turn to Liz Levine. Naomi, please.
So I've had some awareness of the Jewish agricultural movement and resettlement of Russian Jews to the Midwest and Kansas and Minnesota, etc., around the 1880s. And I'm wondering, to what degree is there a connection? I mean, in both cases, I think largely German Jews were trying to sort of resettle their Eastern European counterparts away from major cities, etc. But I'm wondering if those descendants were those who then welcomed the Galveston folks.
That's a great insight. Yeah, I think so. I mean, in terms of the connections between the programs, they were closely, I mean, they were literally run by the same people. So there were a lot of these different groups, as I'm sure you know, that all sort of split off from each other. But ultimately, an organization called the Baron de Hirsch Fund, which was a European group, they were basically behind all of it, including the Industrial Removal Office in New York and the agricultural colony programs in the US. And the Galveston movement, the Bureau in Galveston, was a spin-off of the Industrial Removal Office. And the IRO in New York and the Galveston office were actually run by the same guy, David Breslin, who was running both simultaneously. So there's a lot of interconnection between all of these. As far as some of those agricultural moves, the Galveston movement tried not to settle farmers. It was a sort of stated goal. They were looking for trade skill workers, putting them into cities. They were trying to avoid agricultural settlement. I think mostly because they didn't want to step on the toes of the organizations that were already doing that. But there were some overlap. I was just looking into a family, and this has blown my mind, but there was sent two different families actually who were Romanian refugees. This is in 1907, who were sent to North Dakota because there was a Jewish agricultural colony in southern North Dakota. And they were sent there to be farmers. And I haven't been able to find out what happened to them. I've been looking. But there was overlap. This was supposed to be a sort of alternative to that, but there was inevitably some overlap. So I'm glad you made the connection. There's absolutely a connection.
Okay, thank you. Liz Levine, I think we're able to hear from you.
Yes.
Some information to share. please.
Well, I was particularly interested in this conference because my father's father, my paternal grandfather, came over through the Galveston movement in 1913 from Russia. He was on the Hanover. My brother has done some research, and I really credit him for that. So he found the ship's manifest. And so I have the connection with, the Galveston movement, but also with the Mexico City and Tijuana settlement of Jews, because my grandfather's sister wasn't able to go through the port of Galveston for whatever reason, and ended up going to Mexico City, and where she, had a large family, and some of her descendants, in fact, well, many of the descendants went to Tijuana to, because it was a place to be entrepreneurs. So we have a lot of family in Mexico City, and then we have had family in Tijuana. And I always like to joke, but it's true that when we went to a bar mitzvah there, we lived in San Diego, we went to a bar mitzvah in my second cousin's son in TJ, and thought, well, since we have to cross the border, we better go early. Big mistake when you combine Jewish and Mexican time. It started more than an hour late. In any case, the Tijuana relatives have all moved now. The first ones moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, and the rest of the family followed. So there are relatives left in TJ, but we did have that, and that was, I mean, what a wonderful conference this is to be able to cover all of that. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I'd like to go to Phil Pickman, and then we'll go to Gordon Burnitsky. Phil, we couldn't get you unmuted during the regular program, so let me turn it over to you and the comments that you had at the time.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Great.
I have got a question for people who are familiar with a little bit of Mexican history. When I went with, Isaac was a good friend of mine, Isaac Berger. His father was the one who owned the store in Tijuana. And he told me that in the mid-60s, I think 1940, mid-1900s, 1940, 1950, around that time, his dad ran into trouble with the Mexican government because the Mexican government said that any business in Mexico had to be owned 51% by Mexican citizen and by somebody born in Mexico. And his father came from Poland, so he wasn't born in Mexico. His dad tried to transfer ownership of his store to one of his sons because his three sons were all born in Mexico, and the government wouldn't let him do that. Does anybody know what the history of that kind of law was?
I know that is true about the law, but I don't know anything about its history.
It was part of the nationalist movement after the revolution, when they were trying to establish more Mexican ownership of businesses and properties and so on.
That law apparently got changed. Do you know when it got changed?
I don't know when it was rescinded. No, I don't know.
Okay. Okay, when I was in Tijuana with Ike, we were there during Rosh Hashanah, and it was interesting. We went to services at the I forget what the name of the Tijuana congregation is called, but there was a Tijuana Jewish community organization. They rented they rented a couple of rooms above a store, and that's where the synagogue was located. And everything that was going on, all the conversation that was going on was in Spanish, which I didn't understand. But it was interesting because at the synagogue that I grew up in Minneapolis, it was common on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for people to bring their newspapers and read the newspaper during services. And they were doing the same thing in Tijuana. The only difference was the papers there were in Spanish.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Gordon, you had
Yeah, Brian, if you want to know about agricultural settlements in the Dakotas, the person you need to talk to is Stan Adelstein in Rapid City.
Wow, okay.
His grandmother homesteaded there. He always used to joke that her languages were Yiddish and Lakota. And I think he's probably as knowledgeable as anyone I know about agricultural Jewish settlements in the 1880s. Stanford Adelstein in Rapid City. He was a state legislator.
Stanford was his first name?
When Dennis Banks was on the run from the FBI as a result of Wounded Knee, he stayed at Stan's house.
Wow.
Anyway, little note there. So
that's
anyway,
amazing. It's one of these sort of peripheral things. I don't know if I can, how much I'll be able to get into it.
Just a suggestion.
There were probably 10 or 12 people on one ship from Romania who were all sent there together.
Yeah.
And Ashley, North Dakota. I mean, I was like, what are they doing? Sending these people there.
They faded long ago, but I know that some of them, their descendants live in Fargo for North Dakota and live in Sioux Falls for South Dakota.
And they're still there. They're still there now.
Some of them are. Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Thank you.
That's good to know. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Cathy Hart, I think you had a question or comment to share.
Cathy, oh my God. Hi, how are you?
Well, first, I've enjoyed the whole conference, so thank you everyone, including many of my family members. But my question is for Bryan. When you mentioned the 101 manifest, that's a lot, and you are only one person who probably likes to sleep on occasion. So I wonder if you've considered doing a crowdsourcing project for that type of thing.
I don't know how. I mean, that's a great idea. Can I talk to you?
I know some people, and it's also very prime for what Cynthia mentioned, an NEH grant.
If you don't.
So maybe we can talk, and because I think that the whole concept I'm just very enthusiastic about. I think everyone here is, and it's hard to do one at a time and one person at a time. But yeah, it could be something you could deploy college students or youth group kids and older people as well. So
as long as I could give sort of some guidelines as far as what exactly I'm looking for and what what information I would need returned.
Right. There need to be structure. There need to be like standard things to look for and how to return that information and store it and save it and everything. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's a neat idea. Thank you.
Anyway, just throwing it out there. I've got your email now.
Yes, you have my email. Good. I know how to reach you.
Yeah.
So thank you. I've had sort of unformed ideas about something like that, about if I could enlist a bunch of students, because mostly it's ancestry searches. It's not really that hard. It's time consuming.
Newspaper.com.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and so I'm just spending a lot of time hunting people down, and I could probably get some help with that. That would be great.
Well, sleeping is important. So
yeah, that's what I hear.
All right. Well, we'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
Cathy, and good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Cathy, that's a great suggestion. And as a matter of fact, that was going through my brain as I was listening to Bryan's presentation earlier. So thank you for actually coming forward and saying that. I have a quick question for Naomi. Naomi, you obviously talked about, the Myers brothers and their immediate families, but maybe I missed it. But did you mention exactly your family's direct connection? You talked about your grandfather and great-grandfather.
So
did that line carry down to you and your parents?
So through my mother and her father, they are my grandfather's uncles on my mother's father's side.
Okay.
Does that help? Three times grandfathers. So my great grandfather was their brother.
Okay. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Maybe for a future slide, you do that genealogical tree and chart.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah, when I used to teach intro to anthropology and I talked about, you know, kinship, I always used to try to draw things on the board or have handouts so that students can kind of follow that and get a visual sense of how that all works. So anyway, okay. Are there other questions or comments for any of our speakers, for Heidee or Naomi or Bryan, that maybe people still want to chat about or talk about? Either raise your hand or chime in.
Marjorie Laser has her hand up.
Oh, Marge Lazar. Okay, thank you, Marge. Please go
Yes.
ahead.
Okay. First of all, I have one comment and one question, and they both have to do with Mexico. The migration from Mexico to New Mexico occurred because the Inquisition established offices in Mexico. And that was the motivation, was to escape the Inquisition. Of course, they had come to Mexico to escape the Inquisition in Spain, but it continued in America. That's one thing. The other thing, this was a question for Heidee, whether, and I don't see her on the screen. Is she here?
I believe so.
Okay, well, anyway, I wondered if she could comment on the story of Heidrich Sharing. Heidrich Sharing was one of the great violinists of the 20th century and a linguist. And he was asked by the Polish premier in, who was, I guess he was in England at the time, to be his liaison. And I guess as part of those responsibilities, he went to Mexico and approached the Mexican government about accepting Polish refugees. And it was a fairly large group. And one thing I wanted clarification on was whether those were Jewish Polish refugees. In any case, the Mexican government accepted these people, these refugees, with open arms. And Heidrich Sharing was so impressed that he became a Mexican citizen. And this was all obviously during World War II. He became a Mexican citizen, and the premier violinist of Mexico, later he moved, and he was appointed to be Mexico's cultural ambassador. Later on, he moved to Paris, but he remained Mexico's cultural ambassador and traveled back and forth. So that's the story of Heidrich Sharing. And I wondered if those refugees were Jewish refugees. So that was my main question. But the story itself is interesting, you know, because he was Jewish.
I don't believe Heidee is on this in the breakout.
No.
No, I don't think she is either. I didn't see
not.
her. But Heidrich Sharing was a Jewish virtuoso violinist.
Marge, what I might suggest is if you'd like to email me your question, I know how to reach Heidee and put the two of you together, and maybe she'll have some additional information.
Yeah, maybe she will.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to do that. I think Jan Hart had a question for you, Bryan.
Sure. Hi, Jan.
Hi, Bryan. First of all, kudos to my daughter, Cathy, for her suggestion. You know, that comes from a librarian, and we all know how important libraries are and librarians. The other thing is Cathy and our son David have both done a lot of research on portals to Texas history. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if other states have something like that you could click on and find all kinds of information, documents, and our kids have found tons of newspaper clippings with our family names and advertisements from their stores and all kinds of goodies.
It's
so
amazing.
That was just my suggestion, if you can find that on other states.
On other states, that's a good idea. This is the thing at University of North Texas, right? That the portal to Texas history. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. They also have the Jewish Herald, by the way. At least I think they have 4 or 5 years of it. And yeah, I will look. That's a good idea.
I gave the presentation to TJHS in March, I believe, on the portal to Texas history.
Good. It's an amazing thing. I don't. You may know, Cathy, where it came from. I have no idea how it happened. It just sort of appeared.
It's a federal grant in collaboration with Library of Congress, and it started with newspapers, but they include photos and videos and all sorts of other materials. But the Chronicling America is part of the newspaper project, and there is surely more information on other states available.
Okay, good. Very good. Thanks, Jen.
Enjoyed your program so much, Bryan.
Thank you. I'm glad y'all could be here. It's good to see you.
You too.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah, Bo Keppel from here in Santa Fe has a question. Bo?
I just wanted to point out, I think somebody just alluded to this. I stepped out of the room for a moment. But the question of where those first Jews were when somebody said that there was always a Jew in every town that Jews went to, I think Heidee answered that when she talked about the flight of Jews from Mexico north to escape the Inquisition, which followed them all the way from Europe, of course. But the other thing I wanted to ask anybody who has knowledge of it, I spent 2 summers in Mexico, mainly in Jalapa, but spent some time in Mexico City, and a place that I returned to 2 or 3 times while I was there was the Mayer Museum. Mayer was apparently a Jew from, I can't remember where in the US, but he was invited by the Mexican government to establish a trading, where stocks and bonds are traded. And he set that up for Mexico, became a citizen, and developed a phenomenal collection of native indigenous groups in Mexico, and some information on mestizos as well. And also the influence of Jews in Mexico. It's the most fabulous museum. When he died, he left it to Mexico City since deeded it to the government. But I was wondering if anybody knew anything about him prior to going to Mexico. And I can't think of his first name. I saw you nodding there, and I'm wondering if you know, Linda.
I think the first name is Theodore Mayer, because when we lived in Mexico City, we went to a couple of programs there, but it may be Theodore Mayer. I could be wrong though, Bo. I don't know anything. I may have known something earlier about his earlier life, but I don't know right now.
Rachel Cockrell has a question for Bryan.
Hi, Bryan. I love.
Hi, Rachel. Good to see you, sort of in person.
Exactly. Good to meet you finally.
Good to meet you.
And you're the reason I'm here.
Yeah. So I hear.
Yeah, I loved your presentation, and I had no idea that there were only 16 states that didn't receive Galveston immigrants. I guess I had read so many speeches of Jacob Schiff's and Zangwill saying, west of the Mississippi, but clearly they were dispersed all over. My question is, what do your friends and family think of your Galveston research / obsession?
Well, they're here. You actually could ask them. But it's not the first time I got obsessed with a research subject. I think this is probably, people who know me know this is what I do. And not just me, I'm every historian, this is what we do. And so the sort of latching onto some idea and then just digging and digging and digging is par for the course. So I think people are aware. Yeah. But you must get this too. I mean, because this is a first research project for you like this. Yeah. And so people must think you're nuts.
People think I'm totally nuts. Yeah. And also because I guess, you and everyone on this group, on this Zoom, are kind of, in Texas or thereabouts, Jewish. So, you know, it's not so strange or crazy. Whereas in London, England, saying to people, oh, I've spent the last 2 years researching this project, which my great grandfather was part of sending Russian Jews to Texas.
Yeah.
I just, you know, people are sort of bowled over by that.
But you actually have a greater sort of ancestral connection to it in a sense than any of us do. I mean, when you told me who your ancestor was, I was amazed.
Well, it's quite funny because most, you know, 99.9% of people have no idea who any member of my family is, but there's a very slim portion of the population of the world who the name David Jockelman is a big claim to fame, and I'm related to a big celebrity.
Yeah,
so
you are. You are. Big deal.
Yeah, I'm a big deal.
Yeah, so that's great. But thank you. It's a fun question. I appreciate that.
So you don't get any mockery.
Yes, Frankie, I think you wanted to ask a question or make a comment. Frankie Lerner down in Las Cruces.
I don't know if Bryan has read the book And Prairie Dogs Weren't Kosher.
Yes, about Minnesota.
Yes.
Yes, I've read it, but it's been a very long time. I have a copy of it, which I plan on going back to, but it's been a long time. What do you have a connection to the book?
No, I just bought it when I was in Wisconsin.
Okay, this is the history of the Jews. I think of Minneapolis specifically, or of Minnesota generally.
It's of the women. It focuses on the women.
That's right. Good. I need to go back to it. I read it when I was in graduate school, and I was trying to read, because I was going to write a history of a state Jewish community, and I had never read a history of a state Jewish community. So I sort of collected a bunch of examples, and that one was published not long before it was a new book at the time. So I read it then, but that's been more than 20 years. I need to go back and look at it again. So that's, yeah. And Prairie Dogs Weren't Kosher. It's a marvelous title. So thank you. That's a great suggestion.
It's a great title. There's a comment in the chat, I believe, from Jennifer, which reads, in case you didn't know or had forgotten, the National Library of Israel, along with Tel Aviv University, are collecting Jewish newspapers from all over the world from any time. And I have personally found success researching their collection, and she gives the website address in the chat. We are saving the chat comments, so if something comes up or for reference, we can certainly pass that along.
That's handy. Thank you.
Okay. Betty, I believe
I just wanted to say what a wonderful conference this has been. Aside from the presentations, I've been really impressed by the exchange of information, and that people are able to help each other. Did you know about this library, or did you know about that collection? That's what a conference is supposed to do. And I had real doubts that we'd be able to do that on Zoom, but that's just been so impressive that I just wanted to give a shout out to everybody.
Second that. That's a great comment.
Yeah. And I think that points out in, extenuating circumstances, i.e. COVID, trying this experiment that is a breakout room following the conference for open conversation, I think has been very successful, and, leading to, new resources, new connections, and hopefully new friendships as well across the US. Betty, from Liz Levine, your family's presentation was terrific, Betty. So thank you again. From Liz.
Thanks,
Levine.
Liz. That makes my day.
Okay. From Judith Heller, as a comment to everyone, there's a book called Dakota Diaspora.
Yes, Sophie Truppen is the author of that one.
I remember
it was her
years ago.
That's an old one. Yeah, that's another one. I mean, I read all this stuff long ago. I haven't looked at it for a while, but yeah, she writes about homesteading in North Dakota, and so that's certainly a source. I mean, again, I'm not writing about homesteading in North Dakota, but as some way to sort of fill in a little background on a few of these folks. that's another really good suggestion.
Marianne Smith, I believe you had something you wanted to share.
Yes, I just got here at the last minute, and
Thank you for coming.
yeah, I've been listening to the sessions, but I lost the link for the group chat. I live in California, but I'm from Waco. And Bryan, I read your dissertation.
Wow.
I did.
That
years
was you.
ago.
I knew somebody had.
I did. Yes. And because I'm a writer and I am writing about my own experiences growing up in Waco. Mm-hmm. And to the New Mexico Jewish community, my uncles were on my father's brothers, the Smiths, Phil and Milton, both had furniture manufacturing businesses, and they had salesmen who went all across that Southwest territory. I remember that because my cousins did the rep business, and I remember they knew all the Jewish furniture sales places. They all had these networks. If I wanted to ask about anything in El Paso or New Mexico or Arizona, they knew everybody who was who sold furniture because they would send from their factory.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but both factories are gone now. But there is a real interesting history with that. We always had couches.
Is that what you're going to write about? Is that?
No, but it was, no, it's the Chazano side. The Harlech family were friends with my mother's family. And so I'm writing about my grandfather. The Chazanos are a very, very interesting branch, and some things about the Smiths, but the Chazanos really have a richer history with the religious community in the synagogue, and this was such a great, really, really wonderful. All of them have been great. Thank you.
Samoa Wallach wants to share fantastic cooperation from all attendees, and I think that echoes what Betty just mentioned as well as others. So I think that's great. Any other last minute?
Charles has his hand up. Charles Hart.
Oh,
hey, the young lady from Waco that's not living in Waco anymore. Your father was Milton Smith?
No, Elmer. He passed away very young, but so, Milton was my uncle. My uncle.
Oh, your uncle was Milton.
Yes, Uncle Milty.
He was president of the Texas Jewish Historical Society.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
1989 to 91, I know him personally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uncle Milton was really a character. He has his own history. I think he's done some documentation because he was a real leader in the Austin Jewish community.
Right.
And he told me that he was the first Jewish person to serve on the board of a bank in Austin.
Wait, what was Milton's wife's name?
Helen.
She was my mother's best friend in college at Texas.
Wait. No. Wait a minute. Who's talking to me? Which person?
Sally Dreyer.
Oh, no. Helen was a New Yorker. No, Helen. No, well, Tina and Lonnie, my cousins.
Right. I know them. Right.
Yeah. No, but Helen was.
I thought she was.
No, she's a New Yorker. She went to Hunter College. She had a law degree. I mean, she was complete. She never lost her accent. Never.
This different one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Davy Lou Solka has her hand up. Davy Lou.
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't get muted. Marian, did you say you're writing something about the Jews of Waco?
Yeah.
Well, I'm the editor of the.
I know.
Okay.
I will. No.
Are you going to send me something?
Yeah. No, I will. And also, you did publish a little piece I wrote about my grandfather. long
Okay.
time ago.
I thought,
From-
it was okay, but
Yeah.
I hadn't gone to my index, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to be sure that you.
Oh, sure. No, I
Okay.
definitely. And I also
Okay.
did an oral history. I did an oral history that I transcribed. I used to interview Holocaust survivors in California. So I interviewed my aunt and uncle about the tradition, which I think is so important. I learned as a child that whenever a Jewish person who was an itinerant ended up in our town, the synagogues had a fund. There was a special person you went to see, and they would give you some, you needed money to get a ticket somewhere or to get some help. You would be sent to one merchant in town or one designated person
Yeah.
who had that charity fund. And I just thought that was such an interesting
Yeah.
arrangement, because they had, in the oral history, my aunt tells me that she was from Taylor, Texas, which is a tiny little town near Austin.
Mhm.
And her father was in charge of that fund. And so, he'd give them money. And she said, we'd just give them a ticket to Austin and make them take care of it.
Yeah. Did you put those oral histories in our archives at the Briscoe?
No, I'll have to ask you how to do that, but I do have the
Okay.
original tape. And yeah, it was a very special moment.
Okay, if you could probably get those on a CD, and Sally Dreyer is our person who takes those. And,
Thank
but
you.
that would be something that we need in our archives.
Yeah, I've got lots of little pieces.
You
and
and I need to
bits.
talk probably.
We will. And
Okay,
thank you
I'm gonna
so
go back
much
to
for
my-
your newsletter. I love the newsletter.
And
Thank you.
also, Marianne, I'm a Joy Gandler put a lot of information about Waco at the Baylor.
I know, I tried to find it. I knew Irma Joy. I told you the last meeting, I used to babysit her kids.
Yeah.
We were good
Yeah.
friends. And I'm not sure I tried to find it at Baylor.
Marianne, I think I have the name of the contact person there.
Okay, so we'll
chat.
This should be called Jewish Geography, having a wonderful time here. Who knows who and what?
Yeah.
That's just the comment I wanted to make in conclusion, is that, a lot of times, like I remember my parents and grandparents, you go into a party and you do Jewish geography, like where do you live and who did you know, and you see this happening here. Only some of this information is not just fun, it's really part of this historical gathering of information. I'm really appreciating that.
Yeah. It's
Get
really
all these
important.
Jews together and you do this anyway. This, where are you from? Where do you know? And now it's got a great goal.
It does. It does.
Yep.
Linda, you're muted.
You're muted, Linda.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I wanted to thank everyone again, our speakers, our panelists who joined us again this afternoon from yesterday and today. And if for some reason you need to be back in touch with someone, let us know, get in touch with me or with Sheldon, and we'll try to make sure you all get reconnected and can continue the conversation and sharing of information. And let me once again thank Tom Duncan Hart from New Mexico Jewish Historical Society. You've made this possible through the technology. I certainly couldn't have done it, but we owe you a huge thanks, Ron. I owe you. So on that happy note, thanks again. And, we'll let everyone know of upcoming programs. And Sheldon, I'm assuming you will too, from Texas. And
Absolutely.
share the wealth. So a wonderful collaboration. It's been fun, but I have to honestly admit, it's over. No offense.
One final word. Trick or treat.
Thank you all,
Forget
everybody.
it's Halloween.
This was great.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
thank you again.
And thank you, Linda and Sheldon, for pulling together a very successful conference.
Well,
Well organized, well done.
Thank you.
a labor of love.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
What's a nice Jewish girl doing in a place like this? My life was quite different than that so-called average Jewish child.
And by request, the TJHS Speakers Bureau presents stories about unknown Jews, well-known Jews, and more, either in person or by Zoom.
So perhaps I do have a story to tell, if for no other reason than it's part of the Jewish history of Santa Fe.